Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. While we've been reading through the book of Job, and as Job has been having this discussion with his friends, there's been this dialogue going on between them. There's been an individual that's been kind of sitting back and listening the whole time. And it's a man by the name of Elihu, who was a young person, and he didn't want to speak up because he thought that, age should have the privilege to be able to speak, and he was young, and so he didn't feel like it was his place to speak up. But he had now gotten to the point where he was a boiling pot. He just had to release what he had to say because he was just very angry and irate. He was mad at Job because of his what he felt was his self-righteousness. He was mad at the three friends because they had not given Job an adequate answer in his eyes. And now he's going to speak. And now we're going to see the young man give his opinions and his view of what's going on. And there's some interesting things about that. For one, what's interesting is that Elihu actually gets closer to the answer than everyone else. We'll find that the speech by Elihu actually serves as a great bridge into the speech that God will give to Job from the whirlwind, and that some of the elements that God will later speak about in the whirlwind are found in Elihu's speech, especially in chapter 37. And we see that Elihu actually is pretty wise. He's not right in every case, but he seems to get closer than anyone else. And that shows us that just because a person is young doesn't mean that they don't have something important to say. And that's a lesson that should really ring out for those who are older, who might think, well, this young individual, this young preacher, he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's young, he's inexperienced or things like that. Or maybe a young person comes to us in a respectful way and tries to bring correction. Maybe they see something that we're wrong about in our lives, or maybe wrong in our thinking, and they come up to correct us, and we get offended thinking, who's this young guy to be trying to correct me? We have to realize that sometimes even the young have wisdom and have something to say. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, in verse 11, the Apostle Paul told Timothy, he says, command and teach these things. Verse 12, actually, let no one look down on your youthfulness, but show yourself as a model to those who believe in word, conduct, love, faith, and purity. He said, don't let people look down on your youth. Now, there was an expectation by Paul for Timothy to earn that. It shouldn't just be given to him automatically, but still at the same time that people shouldn't have looked down on Timothy simply because he was young, especially if he was demonstrating these various characteristics that Paul was listing out. And so for the older people, that's a good lesson. And then also for the younger people who might feel like they don't have a voice, that maybe they don't have the right to speak up, that maybe they just automatically think that they don't know what they're talking about because they are young and they don't really want to say anything. It might very well be that maybe the Lord is using you to speak and to say something that is needful and helpful in the moment. And don't think just because you're young that you can't have a piece of the conversation, that you can't sit at the table and join in the discussion. From a young person's standpoint, don't back down from getting involved in the conversation, but do it with humility. And that brings us to our next point. Elihu was the one that got perhaps closer to the answer than anyone else, but all through his discourse, especially at the beginning, you can tell that he is very prideful. He's certain he has it all figured out. He's come to enlighten everyone else with his wisdom, and he's very prideful. It really comes out in his speech. And that is one of the dangers of the youth, in that oftentimes young people do think that they have it all figured out, that they have all the answers, that everyone should listen to them. They don't want to listen to the older people. They think the older people are old fashioned, and certainly, they're now smarter than the older people, and things like that. And it can just be a problem for young people, that they could go to the other extreme to where they think they know it all. And that's something that the young people have to guard against. And so there's a lot of lessons here with Elihu in connection to youth. One, we shouldn't despise someone just because they're young, but listen to what they have to say. Two, if we are young and find ourselves in that position, don't be afraid to speak out. But thirdly, don't be prideful. Don't think you have all the answers. You can speak your piece, but then accept criticism and speak your piece with humility of heart, and be open to the idea that you might be wrong. But still, at the same time, don't be afraid to speak up. It might very well be that you can enlighten others, or it might very well be the case that you will be enlightened as they might correct you and point you in a better direction. So as we do our reading today and we read about Elihu, let's think about these things and consider them so that we can relate to the youth better if we're older, and so that as the youth we can relate to other people better, especially when it comes to theological discussion. So these are some things we reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.